Discover the incredible act a single dad took after learning the CEO had just 90 days to live. Jake's heart raced as he read the article. The headline throbbed in his mind, CEO given 90 days to live. It was about Kate, the dynamic woman who had turned a vision into a successful tech startup but was now facing a brutal cancer diagnosis. She had once stood before him, vibrant and full of energy, believed in him when he had lost faith in himself. How could someone so powerful be on the brink of death? Jake's hands trembled as he finished the piece. Could her story be more than a tragedy? Could it shine a light on the shadows of his own life? Each morning, he rose before dawn to fix engines at Wise's auto shop, sweat slipping down his brow as the smell of oil and gasoline filled the air. He had learned to take pride in his work, the dependable mechanic everyone turned to. And, night after night, he was home in time for bedtime stories with Lily, her laughter bubbling like a fresh spring. Yet lurking beneath was a gnawing unease. The weight of responsibilities pressed down on him. What kind of future could he really provide? Jake felt something stir as he recalled Kate's pep talks, moments that had reignited his spirit when despair felt inescapable. Could it be time for him to give back, to turn that belief into something tangible? Before he could catch his breath, Jake found himself gripping a pen, pouring his heart into a letter. He wanted to propose scholarships for single parents, a project that could empower those like himself while honoring Kate's impact. But what if it failed? What if this was naive? The thought prickled at him, his certainty beginning to waver as he decided to send it off. Days later, he stood before corporate executives, his vision spilling out in earnest detail. Their reactions were like ice water splashed across his face. Skeptical glances exchanged, a VP of marketing with a steely expression dismissed his proposition outright. This isn't a charity, Jake. We're here to make profits. Those words stuck like a shard of glass in his gut. Compromise felt like betrayal, but a small voice urged him to consider scaling back. Maybe the dream could be trimmed to meet their narrow expectations. That IT nodded him. Was ambition a dirty word? Internal pressure built each time he imagined disappointing Lily, who believed in her father's unwavering strength. Yet here he was, feeling small, hemmed in by those who didn't see worth in people like him or his proposal. He needed to navigate this corporate labyrinth, but every step felt treacherous, his confidence crumbling as doubt slid in like a viper. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The clock was ticking, and with it, the pressure mounted. Could he genuinely rally enough support to persuade them to see the human side of this business? What would Kate think, the same woman who had navigated challenges with dignity? And now, in the face of an impending deadline not just for her, but for the vision he desperately clung to, he couldn't help but confront the question that hung heavily in his mind: was it worth risking everything to pursue this dream, or was he merely losing sight of reality? With each passing moment, Jake grappled with the stark reality of his choices, knowing he stood at a precipice that felt both frightening and exhilarating. Anxiety swirled in his gut, twisting like a knot, as the walls of the corporate office pressed closer. Time was running out, and the choices ahead seemed impossibly intertwined with his longing to forge a legacy for Lily. Jake paced restlessly at the edge of his workbench, the rhythmic clicking of tools a taunting reminder of the task ahead. That meeting had rattled him. He felt like an outsider in his own story, as if the corporate world had snatched away the narrative he had believed he could control. His hands moved unconsciously, tightening and loosening around a wrench, betraying the turmoil brewing within him. The executive's dismissive attitudes hurt more than he had anticipated. He was a mechanic, grounded in real-world work, and yet here he was, floating in a sea of cold, profit-driven jargon that rendered him powerless. Every word from their sharp tongues had cut through his conviction. They were both savants and executioners. Lily's laughter echoed in his mind like a lifeboat, guiding him back to the heart of his mission. She was why he had dared to dream. Would she see the fire in her father's eyes dim under the weight of corporate apathy? Now more than ever, he needed to rise, to pull from his past lessons to forge a path forward. Jake decided to throw caution to the wind. He would return to the executives. The inclination towards shrinking his vision had crept in, but he could not afford to compromise his values. A newfound resolve washed over him. He spent the next few nights devouring resources on effective pitch strategies and non-profit structures, immersing himself not only in the practicalities but also in the emotional underpinning of his project. His late nights blurred into early mornings as Jake transformed his anxiety into actionable steps. He set up meetings with local businesses, seeking partnerships to bolster his initiative. Each conversation, filled with uncertainty and hope, chipped away at the doubts that had festered since that fateful corporate meeting. As days turned into weeks, Jake honed his proposal, infusing it with compelling narratives and resonant data about the impact of education on single parents. He tackled every challenge with a tenacity he didn't know he possessed. Still, he knew that resilience alone wouldn't guarantee success. He needed to uncover his own strengths while acknowledging his vulnerabilities. The emotional core of the scholarship initiative became the bedrock of his proposal, drawing from his own experiences. He crafted stories that showcased the struggle of single parents, the aspirations they held for their children, and the impact even a small scholarship could have. Jake mapped out potential scenarios where these scholarships could change lives, nurturing the seeds of hope he had felt himself. In every narrative thread, he saw a reflection of his daughter's future, a future where Lily could soar. Inspired by the examples he set, after gaining momentum from community engagement, it was time for round 2 with the executives of the tech company. As he approached the meeting room once again, his heart pounded more fiercely than before, but this time, it was charged with conviction. Maybe that blend of fear and determination was what propelled people forward. He could use it to add urgency to his pitch. With a deep breath, he stepped inside, prepared not only to defend his proposals but to embody everything they represented. This wouldn't just be a presentation, it would be a testament to the lives that could change, because those lives were mirroring his own. As he began, a singular thought crystallized. He was no longer a mere mechanic, he was a voice for his community, an advocate for change. That realization ignited a passion within him that lit up the room, but he was unaware that the path ahead was about to reveal a reckoning that would test his newfound purpose. Just as Jake felt the energy shift in the room, a figure stepped forward from the shadows of the audience, a familiar face that sent a ripple through his resolve. It was someone from his past, someone he never expected to see again. The tension thickened, and with it, the looming question: what would this encounter reveal about his journey? The air in the room thickened with uncertainty, the atmosphere crackling like the lead-up to a thunderstorm. Jake's eyes widened as they met those of Mark Donovan, the former partner who had left their mechanical workshop in pursuit of a corporate dream. The man's sharp suit contrasted starkly with the grease-streaked shirt Jake had donned for the meeting. "Jake," Mark started, his expression a mixture of surprise and skepticism, "you're still doing this? I thought you'd given up by now." The comment felt like an unwelcome punch to Jake's gut, but he steeled himself against it. He had come too far, had fought too hard to reclaim his narrative to let Mark's judgment derail him now. "I had my doubts, but I'm not here to walk away this time," he said. The words flowed out more confidently than he felt, buoyed by the stories of resilience he had tapped into during his preparation. While he continued his pitch, he couldn't shake the weight of Mark's presence from his mind. The man had always been ambitious, driven, and it glared starkly against the backdrop of Jake's grassroots approach. The thought simmered quietly: how many times had he told himself that success meant leaving everything behind? This thought gnawed at him, rising like an unwelcome wave that threatened to swallow him whole. As the conversation flowed, Jake focused on how to center his narrative on the very struggles that made him human. He gestured animatedly while speaking about the obstacles single parents faced, drawing on tangible examples from his own life and the community around him. He wanted to illustrate that scholarships meant not just financial support but also hope and dignity, a ladder that could lift families from despair. Yet, amidst his passionate delivery, Jake observed Mark's shifting expressions. Disregarding the temptation to delve into old wounds or to seek validation for his own choices, Jake redirected his attention back to the executives, who glanced between him and Mark with a mix of intrigue and apprehension. Halfway through his well-practiced words, a thought sprinted through his mind, a rapid fire of understanding. What if Mark's reappearance was not merely a disruption, but rather a reflection of Jake's professional growth? This man had once left him behind for a life of opportunity, but now here he was, propelled by the same motivations that had birthed Jake's vision. It struck Jake deeply. Perhaps success was not just about recognition or climbing corporate ladders, but influencing lives and contributing meaningfully, even if it meant standing up against past acquaintances. This realization ignited within him a fierce determination. As the meeting reached its crescendo, Mark unexpectedly interjected, "I know these projects can flourish. But there's a risk involved. What happens if the funding doesn't come through?" Jake's heart raced. This wasn't just a challenge, it was a confrontation. In that moment, he felt the pressure of his mission swell within him. "Risk is part of the journey," he replied, leaning forward with conviction. "But what's scarier is not trying at all, especially when there are lives on the line. It's about creating a ripple effect." Mark's eyes narrowed slightly, tapping into his own history with these very risks. Was it possible that Jake's sincerity had cracked through the facade of his former partner's corporate armor? Just as Mark's mouth opened to respond, the lead executive raised his hand, his expression shrouded in thought. "Can we pause for a moment?" Jake's breath caught in his throat, the tension mounting as he waited. The next words could either elevate him or doom his initiative. His confidence wavered, and in the quiet that embraced the room, the very notion of his proposal lingered dangerously close to the edge of uncertainty. As the executive prepared to speak, an unsettling thought trailed through Jake's mind. Had he misjudged this encounter, or could this twist of fate truly serve as a catalyst for his aspirations? The clock ticked ominously, a reminder that the choices made in this pivotal moment could shape his journey forever. What would this meeting reveal about his path? And would he finally harness this unpredictable convergence of past and present into a force of change? The silence stretched, heavy and thick, as each individual in the boardroom seemed suspended, caught up in the crucial moment. The lead executive, Robert, regarded Jake with an intensity that pierced through the tight knots of anxiety coiling in his stomach. Jake could feel all eyes on him. Mark's narrowed gaze, the executive's deliberative stare, and the quiet skepticism from the other stakeholders. This was not merely about a pitch, it was a crucible testing his resolve. After what felt like an eternity, Robert leaned back, his fingers steepled thoughtfully. "Jake, we appreciate your passion and the personal anecdotes that give weight to your project. However, our board doesn't just invest in ideas, we invest in people who can deliver results. What makes you uniquely equipped to lead this initiative?" The question danced in the air, insistent and unyielding. Jake had prepared for pushback, he anticipated a myriad of challenges. Yet the probing nature of Robert's inquiry dragged him deeper into self-reflection. It pressed against the insecurities he thought he had overcome, the imposter syndrome that whispered he wasn't qualified, that his grassroots approach wasn't worthy of a corporate audience, but this was his moment. He felt a spark ignite inside him, demanding to be shared. "Because I understand the struggles we face," he replied, letting his voice resonate with urgency and truth. "I've lived it. I know what it means to have the weight of the world on your shoulders and still wake up every day, ready to fight for better opportunities for my children and others like them. This isn't just a job for me. It's a mission driven by my own experiences." The tensions eased slightly as Robert nodded, a flicker of respect momentarily outshining his skepticism. However, the road ahead still felt fraught with uncertainty. Jake let his mind wander for a fleeting moment to the days spent toiling in the workshop, the camaraderie with Mark, and the joy of creation that had spurred him forward. He had learned to navigate failures, to relish them as stepping stones to greater successes. "Also, I'm not alone in this," he continued, his voice steadier. "I've built a network, a community of experts, mentors, and allies who are just as passionate about this mission. The financial element is a hurdle, yes, but the heart of the project beats stronger than that uncertainty." He could see the executive scribble notes, his interest peaked as Jake found his rhythm. The atmosphere in the room shifted, tension morphing into something more collaborative. Jake's heart raced, buoyed by the realization that he was not the same person Mark had known. He was resonating authenticity, fierce intent, and competence that had been forged in personal and professional fire, but even as the meeting unfolded, doubt trickled back into his mind. The cubicles of the corporate world, with their gleaming surfaces, felt worlds apart from his grease-smeared reality. Would they accept him? Would they grant him the opportunity to bring his vision to life, a vision they might perceive as naive? "Let us talk next steps," Mark suddenly interjected, edging forward in his seat. "I know what it takes to gain traction in this industry, and I'm willing to guide you through." Jake's pulse quickened. The unavoidable collision of past and present loomed. Was this Mark, his former partner, offering a hand? Or was it a veiled attempt to assert dominance in the very space Jake sought to claim? He had always viewed success through a lens that defined it as teamwork, collaboration and mutual elevation. But what will this mean for the integrity of my vision? Jake questioned internally, grappling with newfound complexities. He could sense the pivotal choice that lay ahead, teetering precariously at the edge of opportunity and allegiance. With every heartbeat, the stakes rose. Could he find a balance between collaboration and preservation of his values? Or would he be pulled back into old paradigms he had fought hard to escape? The moment felt electric, an intersection of ambition, identity, and a fierce drive to pursue something transformative. What awaited him at this crossroads, and would he make the right choice to secure not just the project, but his true self? As he prepared to respond, a shadow of doubt flickered in his mind, threatening to unravel all he had built. Jake's heart thudded against his ribcage like a drum, each beat amplifying the gravity of the decision ahead of him. The room was pulsing with a silent expectation, waiting for him to take the weighty plunge into the unknown that Mark's offer presented. Did he dare to take the hand extended toward collaboration, despite the risk of losing his autonomy? "Jake." Robert's voice broke the silence. It was a reminder that the moment was slipping away. He couldn't let doubt paralyze him now. "What's your take on Mark's proposal?" The board members leaned in, eyes trained on him, waiting for a commitment. He inhaled deeply, letting the air fill his lungs, grounding himself in the reality that this moment wasn't just about his pitch, but about who he had become through this arduous process. He needed to weigh his response carefully, considering the implications of aligning with Mark, a partnership that stirred both a sense of gratitude and a latent fear of being overshadowed. "I appreciate Mark's willingness to assist," Jake began, choosing his words with deliberation. "But I need to be clear that the vision I have is deeply personal to me. Collaboration would mean bringing together our expertise, but it should not diminish the heart of the project." He observed Robert nodding, measuring Jake's resolve. The opportunity was within reach, yet Jake couldn't shake the feeling that by allowing Mark to steer the project, he risked diluting his authentic voice. Mark had always been the more assertive partner, the one with the confidence to dominate conversations. Would he inadvertently undermine the initiative that had become Jake's lifeblood? "What do you want from me?" Mark's tone shifted, more serious now, an edge creeping in. "I'm not here to take over, I'm here to support you. You're on the brink of something significant. Let us not waste it." Jake clenched his fists, wrestling with not just the pressure of the proposal, but also the relics of their past partnership. Memories flooded in those late nights spent brainstorming, the moments when Mark's ambition had driven them forward but had also crowded out Jake's contributions. It felt right to demand that respect again. "I want my ideas to be heard and valued, Mark. I need to ensure that whatever direction we take preserves the essence of this project, my essence." The stern look on Mark's face faltered, revealing a hint of surprise. There was a moment of palpable silence, the air thick with tension as the weight of Jake's words settled over the boardroom. He felt a rush, realizing that this wasn't just about business, this was about reclaiming his narrative, about standing up for his autonomy. A dawning realization spread through him: he had the power to shape this discourse, to navigate it according to his own principles and vision. While the board members exchanged glances, he could sense their intrigue growing. Jake's willingness to confront Mark was a revelation, not only to himself but to those around him. This was the fierce determination he had tapped into through countless challenges. Robert cleared his throat, breaking the impasse. I think we should further explore the potential synergy, perhaps a collaborative approach where both of you define clear roles that align with your strengths. Jake felt a surge of hope and trepidation. This could be a moment where he crafted his own position while benefiting from Mark's industry knowledge. But the nagging voice in his mind questioned whether it would truly satisfy both his vision and his integrity. Perhaps, Jake conceded slowly, but only if we establish firm boundaries. I want to compromise on what this initiative represents to me. It's more than just a project. I can't lose myself in this. The determination in his voice reflected a shift, a newfound clarity that swept through him. This was not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter where he could lead with authenticity, balance collaboration with self-preservation. Yet, lurking in his thoughts was the undeniable truth: trusting Mark was a gamble. The tension was far from resolved. As he weighed the implications of his next move, Jake knew he was standing at a pivotal moment. Would he unlock a partnership that could elevate his work, or would it entangle him in someone else's vision? The stakes were shifting. With a deep breath, he prepared for the inevitable confrontation. He had come too far to retreat now. What he didn't yet know was that the upcoming days would unravel deeper layers of complexity, forcing him to confront not just Mark, but his own definition of success and legacy. The sun hung low in the sky as Jake stepped out of the boardroom, the weight of the conversation still pressing down on him. He navigated the uncertainty of his position, yet the path ahead still seemed cloaked in shadow. He could feel the sharp sting of self-doubt creeping back in, whispering reminders of his past hesitations, while simultaneously igniting a fire within him, a determination that had taken root during this tumultuous journey of self-discovery. Sitting in his car, Jake meticulously replayed the meeting in his mind, poring over every word exchanged with Mark. Although the prospect of partnership was tantalizing, he was acutely aware of the risks it posed. Would he remain the architect of his vision, or would Mark's influence craft it into something unrecognizable? The thought settled uncomfortably within him. He pulled out his laptop at a nearby cafe, seeking refuge in the familiarity of completing a project that tethered him to his essence. As he disconnected from the chaos of the boardroom, he found himself revisiting his original concept, a manifesto of ideals designed to influence, to inspire action rooted in authenticity. The blank document stared back at him, waiting to be filled, and with every keystroke, Jake could feel the resurgence of his confidence. Each word was a declaration. This was his work, profoundly personal and deeply rooted in who he was, yet, a flicker of anxiety interrupted his flow. Mark's voice echoed in his mind, hinting he was the missing piece Jake needed. The glimpse of potential partnership tugged at him. A respected CEO with vast experience could offer insights that might elevate his project. But was this need worth the cost of relinquishing some of his autonomy? With his thoughts swirling, he noticed a couple sitting nearby, animatedly discussing their day. Their laughter reminded him of the warmth of connection. A sharp pang of self-reflection lanced through him, reminding him of his own relationships, the sacrifices he had made, the moments he retreated into solitude instead of reaching out. It dawned on him that his personal growth had also centered around building networks, nurturing connections that validated his vision. Could asking for help from Mark actually strengthen his vision, if they could establish boundaries? As if on cue, his phone buzzed with a message from Robert, suggesting a follow-up meeting to clarify roles in their possible collaboration. A wave of nervous excitement washed over him. This was an opportunity not only for his project but for him to solidify his boundaries and redefine his professional identity. His fingers hesitated over the screen as he drafted a response. Should he steer the conversation during the meeting, sharpening the focus on his vision? Or perhaps it was time to explore how they might weave their strengths together, an exchange born out of mutual respect. Jake understood that trusting Mark did not mean forfeiting his authority. Rather, he could assert what mattered most to him while remaining open to guidance that could enrich his work. Jake sent the message, feeling an exhilarating mix of fear and hope. His journey thus far had revealed a different kind of strength, the ability to confront not just external challenges but the internal fears that often held him back. He was learning to trust himself, to understand that vulnerability was not a weakness but a way to forge stronger connections. Exiting the cafe, he couldn't shake the intoxicating mix of anticipation and anxiety surging through him. The unknown was a churning beast waiting to be tamed. Would he redefine his narrative alongside Mark, or fall prey to the very risk he feared? The chill in the evening air couldn't cool the fire of determination igniting within him. True clarity was on the horizon, but Jake knew it would require courage. The moment had arrived to confront not just the business facade of this partnership, but the raw, vulnerable layers of himself hidden beneath it. And as he headed toward his car, a new realization settled. His definition of success was transforming. He was ready to step into the arena, to take ownership not just of the project, but of his legacy. But the revelations were just beginning to unfurl, and Jake braced himself for the pivotal discussion ahead. As his phone buzzed again, he glanced down to see an unexpected message from Mark that would change everything. Jake's heart raced as he read Mark's message, each word pulling him deeper into a whirlwind of uncertainty and opportunity. "Can we meet tomorrow to discuss the partnership further? I want to ensure we're aligned before moving forward." The weight of the message pressed against him, conjuring questions that danced ominously in his mind. Did Mark sense his hesitation? Was he pushing for a commitment Jake was not yet ready to make? As he drove home, the streets blurred past him, his thoughts dominated by visions of what could lie ahead. A partnership with Mark could grant him access to resources and networks he previously only dreamed of. Yet, Jake was acutely aware that each choice came with its risks. How much of himself would he have to compromise? What elements of his vision could withstand the influence of another? Pulling into his driveway, Jake was momentarily distracted by the sight of his son, Charlie, bouncing a basketball in the driveway. The simplicity of that moment was grounding. He stepped out of the car and approached Charlie, who was full of energy, his laughter breaking through Jake's storm of thoughts. It was these moments that reminded him of the foundational values he wanted to instill: autonomy, integrity, and the courage to forge one's path. "Hey, champ. Want to show me those new moves?" Jake asked, forcing a smile, eager to immerse himself in this precious distraction. As they played, thoughts of Mark continued to loom. Mid-game, Jake found himself pausing to reassess. The thrill of being a father taught him the importance of mentorship, the power of guiding others while maintaining his essence. Could he transition these lessons into his negotiation with Mark, ensuring he remained true to his vision while benefiting from collaboration? In the aftermath of their game, Jake sat in the backyard, mind swirling as twilight cloaked the sky. The intimacy of being a father felt like a refuge, a sharp contrast to the impending corporate discussion. His identity was not just tied to his work, it was shaped profoundly by the values he imparted to Charlie. Suddenly, he felt a surge of clarity. Perhaps it wasn't just about negotiating boundaries, it was about crafting a partnership built on mutual respect, a partnership where he could teach and learn in tandem. He envisioned specifics, setting clear goals, regularly reassessing their alignment, and ensuring that both their voices were heard. The decision simmered within him as he formulated a plan, preparing himself to articulate it in the meeting. He jotted down notes, phrases that defined his intentions: collaboration, transparency, shared vision. Each word infused with purpose, grounding him in his mission. At last, he texted Mark back. "Let us meet tomorrow. I'd like to clarify my vision and discuss how we can ensure our goals align effectively." As he hit send, a wave of relief washed over him. While the future with Mark remained uncertain, his confidence was no longer eclipsed by fear. Instead, it was fueled by a new sense of identity that blended personal values with professional aspirations. Yet, just as Jake began to feel at ease, an uneasy inkling shadowed his satisfaction. What if Mark had ulterior motives that could overshadow his vision? What was the true nature of this partnership? Tomorrow would bring answers, but one fact was undeniably clear: Jake was no longer just a player in a business arena, he was a father determined to forge a legacy, both for himself and for Charlie. As twilight deepened into night, Jake realized these negotiations would extend beyond the boardroom. They would be a testament to everything he had learned about growth, connection, and integrity. With his heart set on the morning's meeting, Jake prepared to stand firm in the identity he was building, one grounded in authenticity and resilience. He knew the stakes were rising, and the landscape of his future was intricately tied to the choices he would make. Then, amid the silence of the night, his phone buzzed again, a news alert about Mark's health. The weight of the news settled like a stone in his stomach. Could this truly change the dynamics of their partnership? The moment of truth was drawing near, and with it, a question lingered in the air: would Jake seize the moment, or would he allow fear of the unknown to take hold? Jake awoke the next morning with an uneasy tension coiling in his stomach. The sun streamed through the curtains, illuminating the stark reality of the day ahead. This wasn't just a business meeting. The gravity of Mark's health news loomed over him like a dark cloud, and Jake had been forced to confront not just the potential of their partnership but the fragility of life itself. As he prepared for the meeting, every detail felt magnified. He pulled on a crisp shirt, the fabric sharp against his skin as he moved. He thought about the core tenets he wanted to uphold, the principles that shaped his life both as a father and a professional. He couldn't shake the feeling that Mark's situation required a different approach, a deeper level of empathy and understanding beyond just the business side of things. Driving to the office, Jake's mind raced with possibilities. The conversation could go many ways. Would Mark surprise him with resilience and determination, or would he lean into vulnerability, shifting the paradigms of their potential partnership? Jake reminded himself to remain open, ready to adapt based on what unfolded. This wasn't merely about financial gain or expansion. It was about forging connections and nurturing a pathway that valued mutual growth, both personally and professionally. When he arrived, the atmosphere in the conference room was charged. Mark sat at the head of the polished table, a frail figure clad in a tailored suit that seemed to emphasize his diminishing vitality. Despite his condition, there was a spark in Mark's eyes that suggested fierce resolve. The room felt intimate, as if they were sharing more than just a business agenda. "Thanks for coming in, Jake," Mark said, his voice steady. "I appreciate you making the time." "Of course," Jake replied, settling into his chair while mentally preparing to show his commitment, not just to the potential partnership, but to the person sitting across from him. They started by discussing the usual objectives, the groundwork previously laid out. But Jake found it difficult to focus solely on numbers and projections. The reality of Mark's prognosis weighed heavily on every sentence they exchanged. As the minutes passed, Jake realized that the opportunity for collaboration had transformed into something greater, an urgent call to build a legacy, a beacon they could create together despite the storm. "Jake, I know you'll need to consider your position carefully moving forward. But I want you to know, this partnership isn't just about expansion for me anymore, it's about legacy," Mark confessed, the vulnerability raw in his expression. In that moment, Jake felt a profound shift. The stakes had never been so personal. He had the chance to shape not only his career but also support Mark in a way that aligned with the values he cherished. It was a moment of revelation. Here was an opportunity to elevate the human element in what had begun as a purely transactional engagement. "Mark, while we discuss the mechanics today, know that I want to ensure your vision is honored and nurtured. If we're going to move forward together, it has to be mutually inspiring, not just financially beneficial," Jake offered, speaking candidly. He could sense a flicker of surprise in Mark's expression, the awareness that Jake was not just another business partner but a potential ally whose values could nurture what remained of his legacy. Their conversation meandered through ambitious visions and heartfelt reflections, deepening the bond between them. Through the complexities of the dialogue, Jake uncovered not only new insights about Mark but also rediscovered invaluable aspects of his own ambition, integrity, mentorship, and the importance of collaborative growth. As they concluded, a palpable energy filled the room. Jake felt invigorated, propelled by the urgency of their discussions and the weight of his newfound clarity. He could be the support that Mark needed while building a partnership that truly mattered. Walking out of the office, Jake's heart was lighter yet full of resolve. He was ready to embrace this unfamiliar journey, to cultivate a partnership entwined with empathy. Yet he couldn't shake a nagging thought: how would the pressing timeline affect their execution? And would he be able to uphold his values under the weight of impending deadlines? The answers felt just out of reach, casting a new layer of uncertainty on his commitment. But one thing was clear, this wasn't just business anymore, it was a shared quest, one that would challenge his very understanding of success. As he drove away, another notification flashed on his phone, a message from Charlie's school, requesting a sudden parent-teacher meeting. Jake's pulse quickened as he wondered what lay ahead, both in his son's world and his own. Would he navigate through this duality with the confidence he needed, or would the crumbling uncertainties drown him again? The road ahead twisted ambiguously, leaving Jake poised at yet another pivotal crossroad. Jake sat in the parking lot, his heart thumping hard against his chest as he stared through the windshield at the entrance of Charlie's school. The message had arrived at an inopportune time, stirring up old anxieties. His head spun with the weight of his new enterprise with Mark, the fragility of life pressing down on him further with the knowledge of a looming parent-teacher meeting that he exhaled, forcing himself to regain a semblance of control. This crossroads wasn't merely about business and mortality. It was an opportunity to be more present in his son's life, even while juggling professional responsibilities. There was an achingly familiar fear within him, the fear of inadequacy as a father. Could he show up for Charlie while diving headfirst into a partnership that had just acquired existential significance? With a deep breath, he turned off the ignition and stepped out of the car. The walk to the entrance felt longer than usual, each footstep echoing in his mind as impending uncertainties battled for dominance. The bright, playful energy of the kids flowing past him reminded him of his own childhood, a time unburdened by the complexities he now faced. Inside, the school's walls were lined with children's art, vibrant and chaotic. Jake paused to let the familiar comfort wash over him. It was a reminder of why he had pushed so hard in his career, to build a better life for Charlie. Yet, he also knew that this mission could easily sink into the void of consumed ambition if he wasn't careful. The teacher's lounge was a sanctuary of whispering voices. He stepped inside, greeted by Mrs. Thompson's warm smile, but held back the urge to simply chat. He had to be direct. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice," he said, straightening up. "Of course, Jake. I want to talk about Charlie's recent progress since I know the transition has been tough for both of you," she began kindly, her tone more nurturing than he was prepared for. Jake's mind briefly flickered to the discussions he had with Mark, wondering if he was starting to carry too many burdens at once. "Is he doing okay?" Jake interrupted, his voice almost betraying a knot in his throat. Mrs. Thompson tilted her head slightly, assessing his concern. "Charlie is bright and engaging, but he has been a bit withdrawn lately. I think he could really use your support at home. It's crucial for him to feel secure with everything that's happening." The words landed heavily. He felt a swell of guilt, the creeping sense that he hadn't fully grasped how his career ambitions enveloped all that Charlie was experiencing. Was he inadvertently contributing to his son's unease? Deep down, Jake feared that success could create a distance between him and Charlie, threatening the very foundation he was trying to secure. I'll do better. I'll make sure he knows I'm here," Jake promised, his voice steady but vulnerable. It was a vow made not just to Mrs. Thompson, but to himself and to Charlie. It ignited a flicker within him, a fire that could guide his decisions through these turbulent waters. After concluding the meeting, Jake stepped back out, feeling a new sense of purpose. The weight of his responsibilities had not dissipated, but clarity began to emerge. He'd have to prioritize his time, dedicate moments to Charlie while fostering his partnership with Mark. Returning to his car, he reflected on this new commitment. The emotional stakes were rising sharply. He could no longer see these as separate paths, they intertwined in a complex dance demanding his full engagement. Could he develop a partnership that flourished while simultaneously being the father Charlie needed? As he drove back to his office, the conversation replayed in his mind, grounding him in reality. He recalled Mark's earlier vulnerability. It was evident that success wasn't merely about achievements, it was about legacy. And now, with Charlie's needs pressing on him, the lessons he learned from Mark seemed all the more poignant. Looking out at the bustling streets, he felt charged with determination. Each choice going forward would ripple outward not just in the boardroom, but into his home. Just as he pulled into the office parking lot, another notification chimed on his phone. This time, it was from Mark, requesting an urgent meeting to discuss their timeline. Jake braced himself as he felt the ground shift again beneath him. Was this the moment of reckoning for both his career and his commitment to family? Would it demand a sacrifice he wasn't ready to give? As he stepped out of the car, the storm within him gathered momentum, and Jake realized that he was standing on the precipice of profound change. Jake blinked against the harsh fluorescent lights of the boardroom, the air thick with anticipation as he prepared to face Mark. Today was different, marked by the shadow of mortality hanging over their partnership. The urgency of their shared mission had crystallized not just about profit margins but about leaving a legacy of impact in the world around them. "Thanks for meeting last minute, Jake," Mark's voice cut through the tension, yet the frail nature of his being was apparent. This was more than a conversation about business, it was a moment steeped in humanity. Jake felt the gravity and picked up on Mark's fragility, understanding that the stakes had never been higher. "Of course," Jake replied, grounding himself as he mentally rehearsed the objectives he aimed to convey. "I know I've laid out these ambitious goals, but I want to make sure our focus remains on empowering the community through the scholarship initiative," Mark said, his resolve evident. Jake nodded. "That's important to me too," he affirmed, anchoring himself by recalling how far he'd come not just professionally, but personally. Those evenings spent sharing dreams with Charlie, picturing a hopeful future, reaffirmed his purpose. This partnership had to symbolize more than mere financial success. It needed to resonate deeply within him. "Good," Mark continued, leaning forward slightly, "because it's time to get serious about our implementation timeline. I'm pushing for aggressive deadlines to ensure we gain traction while I can still spearhead this vision." The request hit Jake like a punch, and doubt crept in. "But, aspects of our foundation must remain intact, Mark. If we rush this, we risk losing the essence of what we're trying to build." "The essence?" Mark retorted, his voice tinged with urgency. "Jake, we won't have the resources to innovate if we keep worrying about perfecting every detail. We need to move fast." Jake threw his hands up, frustration boiling. "I get that, but what got us here was the authenticity of our mission. It's not just about speed. It's about ensuring we're doing this right, we're giving voice to single parents like me." The vulnerability of his comeback took even him by surprise. Mark's eyes softened as he absorbed Jake's intensity. "Fair point," he admitted quietly. "What do you propose?" Jake inhaled deeply and steadied his thoughts. This was an opportunity for collaborative strength. "Perhaps we establish clear metrics of success, solid milestones to measure our progress. I want to ensure nothing compromises this initiative's heart. We can have both speed and integrity." The air shifted. Jake felt his grounding solidify, a silent recognition shared between them. "I can align with that," Mark conceded. "Let's draw lines right now, ensuring we don't lose sight of our purpose as we drive this endeavor forward." They spent the next hour fleshing out a sequence of actionable objectives, establishing accountability measures and timelines that sparked Jake's innate enthusiasm. He was no longer the reluctant participant, he emerged as a co-creator, weaving his vision into the fabric of their partnership. As they wrapped up, a connection formed that Jake hadn't anticipated. Mark's acknowledgement of the balance they were striving for helped him release some of the remnants of anxiety. They had fostered an understanding that resonated beyond business. It was about leaving a lasting influence on lives, transformed through education. "Thank you for pushing back," Mark said, his expression earnest. "I realize I need someone who believes in this as much as I do, and you've proven that today." His acknowledgement was a catalyst that ignited Jake's inherent self-worth, framing his journey in a new light. He was not only a mechanic but a leader capable of driving significant changes. With the meeting concluded, Jake noticed how his resolve had shifted. Leaving the office felt lighter, echoing back to the childhood laughter of Charlie still ringing in his ears. He was no longer at war with himself but instead ready to embrace a legacy that embraced both professional ambition and fatherhood. Driving home, with each passing street, Jake felt the heartbeat of his commitment thumping steadily, a balance between being a father and a transformative community leader. When he arrived, Charlie was on the porch waiting, eyes bright with expectation. As Jake approached, he scooped the boy up, lifting him high in the air. "Hey, champ. Ready for some time together?" "Yeah. Dad, can we play basketball?" Charlie beamed back, unconcerned about Jake's earlier tension. "Absolutely. Let us go." As they played, Jake felt the joy of his son's laughter wrap around him. This was his real achievement. The merger of his aspirations and responsibilities hadn't crushed him, it had opened new pathways. In front of Charlie, Jake was not only shaping a professional narrative but nurturing a sense of integrity that would echo through generations. His heart swelled as he realized he was transforming conquering doubts, and establishing a legacy woven with love and values. Now, standing proudly as both a father and a leader, Jake felt a profound sense of satisfaction envelop him. This was the life he had envisioned, the life where every choice built connection and empowerment, where legacy was palpable and real. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss more powerful stories like Jake's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and share the journey of triumph. Comment your thoughts and theories about Jake's transformation and what you can learn from it. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of embracing personal growth and legacy.